So we all suspect that it's about to start raining pardons. And you've probably heard that if you are pardoned, well, then you can be forced or compelled to testify because you no longer have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The pardon takes that away from you. Well, is that really the whole story behind pardons, or might it be a little bit more complex? Let's talk about that. Because figuring out what kind of corruption we are up against and how to defeat it, like justice, matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So because we have a pretty good sense it's about to rain presidential pardons, let's talk about the real world implications of somebody being pardoned. Okay, let's set aside for the moment the question of whether a president can lawfully pardon himself. He can't. Let's set aside for the moment whether the president can lawfully pardon somebody in exchange for that person's silence, in exchange for that person's promise not to incriminate the president. He can't. And let's set aside for the moment whether the president can lawfully pardon a co-conspirator, somebody with whom the president has committed crimes. He can't. Okay? Let's talk about a legitimate pardon. What happens when a legitimate, lawful, non-corrupt pardon is given to someone? So the prevailing wisdom is that if somebody is pardoned, that person can't be prosecuted, right, for the crimes for which he's pardoned, so that person cannot invoke their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because they could be forced or compelled to testify after they're pardoned, and their words can't be used against them to prosecute them because they've been pardoned. It's a kind of immunity. That is generally true. That is generally accurate. Just like I suggest it's generally true and generally accurate that we elect politicians to go to Washington, and then when the politicians get there, they actually do what's best for the American people. That's also generally true, generally accurate, at least it should be, but it doesn't tell the whole story. And the simple recitation that if somebody's pardoned, they can be forced to testify because they can't invoke their right against self-incrimination, that's generally true. But let's talk about where the wiggle room is, because in the law there's always wiggle room. First of all, if somebody is granted a pardon by the president, that covers only federal crimes, right? We've heard over and over again that a president cannot pardon state crimes. That's absolutely true. So if somebody gets a presidential pardon and they're forced to testify, they're compelled to testify, they could say, listen, I understand I can't incriminate myself in any federal crimes because I've gotten a presidential pardon, thank you very much. However, I may have also violated some state laws. So if I'm compelled to testify after being given a presidential pardon, I might be incriminating myself for having committed state crimes. Therefore, you can't force me to testify unless the governor or governors, if I've committed state crimes in more than one state, also have to grant me state pardons. That's a viable argument if the person actually may have violated state law, not just federal law. Wiggle room. Here's the second place there's some wiggle room. If somebody gets a federal pardon from the president that covers federal crimes A, B, and C, let's take the state crimes out. This person committed no state crimes. Federal crimes A, B, C, you are hereby pardoned by the president. You know, a creative defense lawyer, and some of my best friends in Washington, D.C. are well-moneyed creative defense lawyers, and I've talked to them about this. They might argue, well, my client has a pardon for federal crimes A, B, and C, but if called to testify, if forced to testify, he might end up incriminating himself on crimes D, E, and F about which the government does not know. So he will still invoke his right against self-incrimination if compelled to testify after being given a presidential pardon. That's wiggle room number 2. Number 3, somebody could be given a pardon, let's say Mike Flynn. He could then be compelled to testify at a trial, and he could testify, but he could just tell a bunch of lies. After all, we're talking about Mike Flynn here in the hypothetical. So now, if he lies under oath at a trial, we can certainly charge him with perjury. We can prosecute him for perjury. And in the event of a conviction, he could be sentenced for perjury. And all of that is wonderful. But it doesn't get us any closer to substantive justice, right, for the crime that we called Mike Flynn to testify about in the first instance. So there's 3 examples of how, even though the general proposition that if you're pardoned, you can be forced to testify stands, there's a lot of wiggle room in any number of ways for the person who is pardoned to try to prevent having to testify against others. I have a feeling we're going to be talking a lot about pardons in the coming days and weeks, and we will try to unravel each and every aspect of what this corrupt administration has been doing to we the people and will continue to do to we the people for another 48 days or however long it is before Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are sworn in as our next president and vice president. And then justice will start to come. And justice matters. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow. As always, folks, thank you for tuning in to these YouTube videos. If you'd like to support our all-volunteer efforts, please go to patreon.com, sign up to become a patron, and if you do, I will send you a couple of Team Justice stickers with a handwritten, personalized note of thanks. And as always, folks, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.